That was Beach Walker by Leaf. Liphe. Again, that's Beach Walker by Liphe. Amazing song. This is a True Love Tuesday. It is 5:35 a.m. Are we remembering that the weight of our body is delivered down the front of our shins and not the back of our calves? This morning, how are you? Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Pal Go On. My name is Herbie. Good morning, everyone. We are now experiencing an interruption in your Tuesday morning. It is 5:35 a.m. We are stretching our self-awareness like a muscle this morning. How art thou? Good morning. Whether you are waking up, stretching your legs, stretching your arms, looking around, doing some push-ups, maybe you are buying yourself some coffee, whatever you are doing out there, we invite you to hold this controller properly with us in this simulation in which we die every 5 minutes, but that timer is reset with a breath. Let's hold this controller properly together. We invite you to hold this controller properly together by pretending that there is a candle in front of every being's lips that being is trying to not put out. And we might notice our body constructing itself differently in relationship with itself as we are holding our controller properly. How do we do so? Again, by placing into our awareness that there is a candle in front of every being's lips in which that being is trying to not put out. And they're not thinking about exhaling, and they're not thinking about inhaling. Simply allowing this candle to be in front of their lips, about an inch or two, and it's just flickering there, and simply allowing it to flicker and not put it out, trying to not put it out as they leave their swallowing muscles alone, form themselves around the proper shape, size, and function of the tongue, as in the tip of the tongue wanting to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth, the relationship of the back 1/3 of the tongue being vertical, up and down, and simply not exhaling or inhaling, not thinking about exhaling or inhaling, but simply the intention of trying to not put this candle out in front of their lips. Good morning, as we are holding our controller properly together today and every day on Pal Go On. Today's topic on True Love Tuesday, we talk about naming, not blaming. Again, today's topic on True Love Tuesday, I repeat, is naming, not blaming. Good morning, everyone. Hope you're feeling well out there. It is a True Love Tuesday, and it's feeling so good. It is the beginning of this show. We will get to any comments, chats at the beginning, middle, and end of each show. I want to say thank you so much before we move forward. I want to say thank you so much for coming through. Whether you are here live or whether you are there in a VOD, your support is endlessly appreciated. And I want to thank you so much for being here, and hope that you feel so good with us today by doing these little body magic tricks and holding this controller properly today in this simulation of ours. Let's hold this controller properly together. And that is my thank you. Today we will be talking about naming, not blaming. Thank you for coming through, whether you are from Instagram, TikTok, Discord, Twitter, D Live. Oh, no, not D Live. And as for you who are watching us, whether you are on D Live, YouTube, or Twitch, if you are in any of those, thank you for coming through. We will be right back after this short break to talk about naming, not blaming on True Love Tuesday, in which we speak about all the relationships between the two sexes. And on here on Pal Go On, as we are always feeling so good from the inside out, better than your morning would feel without. Just using some body magic tricks, moving our self-awareness around a little bit, and feeling so good for it. Breaking down misconceptions, brought on to us by the world. We'll be right back after this short break. Only if you remember that the back 1/3 of your tongue is vertical. I want to ask if you are remembering to feel the front of your shin. I want to know if you're remembering that you are a mover. I hope you remember that you are indeed a mover today and how good it feels to be a mover. Whether you are sleeping, whether you are sitting down, whether you're awake, whether you are lying down, whether you are standing, running around, it doesn't matter. You are a mover. And how does it feel to remind yourself that you are a mover indeed? Are we allowing the weight of the body to be delivered down the front of the shins and not the back? Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Hopefully you're remembering that the tip of the tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front. How might that feel for you? Today is indeed a true love Tuesday. Although we are movers, that was yesterday, we must move on from yesterday. Today is a true love Tuesday in which we discuss the relationship between the two sexes. More specifically, Mover Mondays, we talk about the relationship between thyself and the self. True Love Tuesday, we focus a little bit more on the relationships between the two sexes. Two halves of the same race. Same dignity, different roles. Why would we want to know our role? So that we could have more freedom. Isn't there more freedom to have more fun in what chess is, should you know the rules of chess? Is it any fun to play chess when the rules are not engaged with concretely? When we do not know the rules, when each player does not know the equal roles of all the different rules or how the different pieces move, are they really playing a game together? Is there really freedom in how they can interact together? As there's so much hidden or so much information that is different between the two as they play chess. So as we examine our lives in this world that we live in, Would we not achieve more freedom? Would we all be aware of the same roles? Would we not have more freedom to have more fun, to enjoy life, love, happiness, each other? Should we all be on the same page? It's not so much about chaining any one person down, but all of us being on the same page. It's more about all of us being copacetic about what needs to happen. What needs to happen for what, Herbie? For us to be happy, for us to have freedom to be happy, to observe our own experience as it unfolds happiness for us. And so we don't even need to think about creating happiness for us, but rather just observing as it is manifested right before our eyes. How do we manifest it right before our eyes? By getting out of our own way to allow it to do what it needs to do, our body. It already is equipped to do whatever it needs to do. You have already won. We just need to get out of its way. How do we get out of its way? By holding this controller properly today and every day together. How do we do that? Let's hold our controller properly in this simulation of ours, in which we die every 5 minutes, but that timer is reset with a breath. We challenge you here. We challenge you here on Palgawan to hold your controller properly with us in this simulation by pretending that there is a candle in front of every person's lips in which that person is trying to not put out. And as they are trying to not put this candle out, they are also remembering to not engage in inhaling or exhaling in the usual manner, as your body already has the mechanical mechanisms inside of you to do so. By sheer nature of pressure of your body against itself, it breathes for you. There is a rhythm within your body of this diaphragm moving up and down, in which the pressure from your own body, mechanically, just the way your body is constructed, whether you like it or not, whether there is conscious effort or no conscious effort, your body is designed to pump air into itself. Simply by virtue of its own design, without your conscious effort. It's just the way your body is designed, like a spring almost. The natural pressure of your body creates a rhythm of your diaphragm moving up and down, so we must not even think about breathing, actually. Though we are so quick to do so if we get anxious. We look in the mirror, we decide how we want to breathe, we decide that we want our ribs to move a certain way, whatever. Establishing how to breathe from the outside in. Looking at a mirror to try to decide how to breathe, quote unquote. But our body already has its necessary facilities to breathe. What we must do is take our attention away from trying to do anything, as our body will do it itself on its own. It will breathe on its own. And so our experience, as all of our actions are guided by our breath, will happen on its own, and we can watch our own movies. We can watch our own lives like a movie. How do we watch our own lives like a movie? Well, let's hold this controller properly to get ourselves out of our way. And how do we do so? Let's name, not blame. On True Love Tuesday, let's name, not blame. Let's name the role of the tongue and not add emotion into it. Let's name the role of the tip of the tongue wanting to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. And if we notice that it is not doing so, we should simply name it, not blame it. And that goes for all sexes. But we will be right back after this short break to speak more about the differences, or the relationships, which might be the same thing, between the two sexes. And today we'll be talking about naming, not blaming. How important. Remember that. We'll be right back, but only if you remember that the tip of the tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. Right. Oh, there it is. And here I'm Pagwan. Are we remembering to feel the front of our shins and that our arms do not rest on our ribs? We might notice the way our knees feel balanced, or when they feel locked, or when they feel bent. And if we are allowing our weight to be delivered down the front of the spine and into the rainbow arches like all the times, we might remember that you do not sit on your legs, but we do feel the weight of the body down the front of the shins as we do so. As we remember that we do not sit on our legs, are we remembering that we place our attention on the front of our shins? And those fleshy calves should feel as if they're draping off the front of the knees. And how does that feel for you? We might notice how far forward of the body it feels to remember that the tip of the tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. We might notice how far forward of the body that feels. We might be getting out of our own mind's way to think properly. Get out of its channels and get out of its way so that it can think and breathe properly. And most importantly, observe itself properly. How? By getting out of its way. How do we get out of its way? By remembering that the tip of the tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. It is a relationship mutually beneficial for you and your tongue. And your ability to speak your voice authentically to the outside world. We are speaking about true love today. Today, we're talking about True Love Tuesdays. We're talking about naming, not blaming. For example, the back 1/3 of your tongue might remember that it's vertical, up and down, up and down, up and down. Or it might not. Might that be the reason in which you cannot breathe properly? Or might that not be the reason in which you cannot think properly? Or feel properly? Or feel the way that you expect it to feel at the moment? Maybe? Or maybe it's the fact that we are forgetting that there is a candle in front of everyone's lips that they're trying to not put out. Is that the reason why? As we know here on True Love Tuesday, true love is the truth without hatred. What way do we make sure that any truth is completely shrouded in lies and not truth? One surefire way is to idolize and be lost in emotion. As we know, emotion will color and taint memories, experiences here and now, and thoughts of the future. Love being the truth without hatred. Love being the truth without hatred. As we know, is there any way to be less truthful than to be engorged in emotionalism? Emotionalism, free to interpret for anybody. Is it a bad thing that people can interpret it? No. Is it an issue that people cannot communicate with it in a concrete and agreeable way? Possibly. Is there an issue with people interpreting situations? We repeat. Is there an issue with people interpreting situations then getting emotional? Is that an issue? Or is it more so that emotionalism is a surefire way to make sure everybody's on a different page? Is it more about people's rights or people feeling that they are being stripped of their ability to interpret? Or is there much more to be gained from being on the same page? Whether that be between yourself or you and your partner, your lover, your sex partner, your relationship partner, your life partner, whatever it may be. Is it an issue that we are concerned with, that we interpret situations? Or is there just so much good to come out of being on the same page? And so if we are to be on the same page, is it much easier or much harder to do when we are emotional? as emotions are this 3D experience and we can only communicate to others usually in such a 2D way, is there a huge issue with us interpreting information and reacting? Or is there much issue with emotions affecting the message we're trying to be on the same page about? Isn't it so hard to be on the same page if the same page is emotionalism? As emotionalism is this outpouring or outburst or the result of a combination of several different layers of you, all outputting into one reaction, one response. Several different layers of you, as in several different layers of awareness of you, whether that be emotional or goals right now. You might be playing to different goals. You might be sleepy, you might be hungry, you might be wanting to be alone, or you might be wanting to be with certain company. You might be wanting affection from a certain somebody. You might be wanting to give affection to a certain somebody. You might be feeling like you are missing out on your own alone time. We are always fighting some kinds of needs. And as a result of many different needs all combined together, because we can only be at one place at one time, out comes an emotion. How can we get on the same page about that when everybody has so many different situations in their awareness at all times? Yes, you might be working on this test, or we might be both speaking about our relationship right now, or we might both be working at this restaurant right now. However, the awareness of all of the things behind the mask of their family, their wanted families, their friends, the friends they wish they could have, the food they ate yesterday, what they're going to do during next summer, the thing they're going to do for this holiday, everything in their awareness is shrouded away from you. So should we be relying on the way that our human bodies react to moments, seeing as the moments are always a composite or a combination of not just the moment, but all of these different contexts going on in their brain? Should we rely on the emotions of a human being to communicate what we all should be thinking about? Well, could we ever get on the same page, as these emotions are going to be a combination result of all those things in their awareness, not just the situation happening to them physically? How can we ever get on the same page if we are looking to emotion for how to guide us on how we should, on how people feel about situations and all these sorts of things, when there's so much context that we do not see? How can we rely on this emotion? Emotions being this combination of just what's happening to them now, but also what's in their awareness. How can we ever get on the same page about that? By the time you're done speaking a sentence about what's in their awareness, their awareness has grown more or shifted again. How do we do so? How do we get on the same page? By naming, not blaming. As in simply drawing awareness to problems and specifically removing the emotional aspect out of it. Now, does that mean the emotion doesn't exist? No. But it means that we should resist the temptation to prioritize it. And how do we do that? By not being a slave to emotion. How do we not be a slave to emotion? Well, let's breathe better than what emotion can offer us. Let's breathe better. Let's feel better. Let's hold this controller properly so we are not a slave to this emotion, but we can see past it so we can get the love that we know that we want, the love that we know that we deserve. Let's name our imbalances and not blame them. As the love that we want is the truth without hatred. And so the best way to balance for imbalance would be the truth about it. So let's name it, name the imbalance and not blame it. Name it and not color it with emotion so that we can see it, so we can see the truth of it. The truth of it. So we can get that love that we want, feel the love that we want. We'll be right back after this short break. Get the second half of the show, where we'll talk more specifically about naming, not blaming. We'll be right back after this short break here on Palgo One, but only if you remember that there's a candle in front of everyone's lips that they're trying to not put out. Are we remembering to feel the front of our shins? Are we remembering that our feet are arches, not L's? They are not indeed L's, as we are placing the weight of the body on the front of the spine and into the rainbow arches at all the times. As we remember that we do not sit on our legs, are we remembering to also move our awareness to the front of our shins? Feeling so good from the inside out, better than your morning would feel without. Good morning, everyone. Are we engaging in some body magic tricks to feel so good as we are allowing ourselves to become more self-aware of the moment today? Good morning. Wherever you are, whenever thou art. Are you at the coffee shop? Are you with some friends? Are you enjoying this year as it comes to an end? We are already here on Tuesday, October 26th, 2021. It is 6:06 a.m. How do you feel about this? Are you excited? Are you looking forward to the end of the year? Are you looking forward to kicking more butt as we approach the end of the year? How? By getting out of our own way and allowing our body to do what it does best? Be awesome. And watch our own lives like a movie? How do we do so? By getting out of our own way. How do we get out of our own way? In this simulation of ours in which we die every 5 minutes, but that timer is reset with every breath that you take, we invite you here on Palgo1 to hold this controller properly in this simulation of ours that we're all living in already. We invite you and challenge you to hold this controller properly with us today by pretending that there's a candle in front of not just your lips, but also everyone's lips in which they are trying to not put out. And you are trying to not put out. That candle just flickering in front of their lips that they're trying to not put out. And we might draw our attention to the fact that the back 1/3 of our tongue is vertical, up and down, and that the tip of our tongues want to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. And how does that feel for you? As there is a candle still in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. And every person is also experiencing this candle in front of their lips that they're trying to not put out. As we are remembering the shape, size, and function of our tongue. The tip of the tongue wanting to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. The back 1/3 of the tongue being vertical, up and down. Now, when we are under pressure or threat, and we feel that our safety is compromised, or our safety is in harm's way, or our safety is insecure, with emotionalism, might be hard to identify what your tongue is doing if we are trying to relax the tongue and get out of our own way in order for our body to breathe properly as it does, as it is designed to, as we are allowing the weight to be delivered down the proper channels. For example, the weight-bearing portion of the spine being the front and not the back, we get out of our own ways and stop conflicting our own body with conflicting instructions that are counter the truth, like trying to pretend that the weight of the body is delivered down the back of the spine when we know that it is not. Or thinking about the weight of the body being delivered into this tailbone, this singular tailbone, instead of being delivered, boom, evenly across these rainbow arches. We get out of our own body's way, our own experiences way, so that we can watch our own lives like a movie by not following with these inconsistencies or these falsities in our body. So by aligning more with the truth, we allow ourselves to get out of our own way. And isn't it easier to align yourself to the truth when we are simply naming, not blaming, as in identifying the issue and not adding an emotional aspect to it, which might cloud the truth, distract oneself from the truth? We're all just problem solvers, solving problems together, solving for imbalances in our own bodies. How much harder is it to identify the real issue of the body when there is emotionalism being prioritized to find the issue? Is it the fact that I'm not feeling the front of my shins? Is it the fact that I'm not feeling my rainbow arches here? Is it the fact that I'm trying to deliver weight into my tailbone? And as we know, our bodies move in the way that we think we are constructed. So how easy, or as we are problem solvers and we are solving for imbalances in our own body, how much harder is it for us to find those imbalances if we are shrouded in emotion, if we are prioritizing emotionalism? We are all just problem solvers. We are all just problem solvers. So even in our relationships, between the man and the woman, just like our relationship with our own body, would we not have benefits in simply naming, not blaming? Why can I not breathe right now? Is it because I'm trying to deliver weight into my tailbone? And as we know, we move in the way that we think that we are constructed. So if I'm thinking about placing my weight into my tailbone, maybe if I shift it to delivering weight into my rainbow arches, is that the reason why I'm feeling anxious? Or is it the fact that I feel like I'm placing my weight on the back of my heels instead of the front of my shins? Is that the reason why I feel so upset right now? Would we blame it? Ah, you darn shins, you stupid shins, I hate you. You stupid tailbone, I can't believe I put all my weight into you. Are we here to blame, or are we here simply to solve problems, to solve for imbalances in the body? Which would then encourage a better breath, a better experience right now, a stronger relationship with that experience, a stronger relationship with the breath in order to experience the most love and life and freedom. How do we get out of our own way? Well, we might name the fact that the tip of the tongue was not being anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth, or that the tip of the tongue forgot it wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. Should we simply name the issue? Doesn't it get placed into our awareness? And doesn't our body know that it wants to feel good already, so it knows what to do? But should we blame the self for the tip of the tongue forgetting that it wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth? Don't we tell the body it was wrong? And so, does the body have an easier time investigating this truth, or a harder time investigating this truth? What do we want at the end of the day? To be right? Or rather to feel as though we are validated for being right? Or do we just want to feel better in life? And to feel better in life, as we are problem solvers, always as we are problem solvers, men and women, is it easier to solve a problem when we know the information? Because isn't the information more truthful? There's no prioritizing of this emotion. We are correcting for the imbalances and not being afraid of them. We'll be right back after this short break, but only if you remember that everybody's got a candle in front of their lips that they're trying to not put out. We'll be reaching the last quarter of the show to talk about naming, not blaming on True Love Tuesday. Bye. the bottom front teeth, wherever you are, whether you are at the mall, whether you're with the kids, hanging out with the kids or the nephews and nieces, or whether you are hanging out doing some work on the computer. I hope that you're remembering that we are movers and that you do not sit on your legs, but rather onto your rainbow arches as we're allowing our attention to be placed onto the front of our shins and not the back. Good morning, everyone. It is the last quarter of this True Love Tuesday in which we talk about naming, not blaming. We talked a lot about naming, not blaming in the body. And as we are reaching the height of this show, so we wanted to explore naming, not blaming between the two sexes. Why would it be important to name, not blame? As blaming introduces this fault aspect, this idea that one is different. We add emotionalism when we add blame. Naming simply adds into our awareness, whereas blaming causes someone to be at fault. In that the solution is to fault somebody as opposed to simply solve whatever problem there is. Blaming suggests that the solution is to judge someone based on a human folly, whereas naming simply adds into our awareness so that now the human amazing thing that we are, you window to this godlike experience that you are, can do its thing. Might we have a harder time naming without blaming in the sexes, as we inherently know that the sexes have different experiences? The idea of not blaming comes from understanding. As we blame things that we cannot understand. When you can understand it, you can't blame it. You are one with it. You are one with whatever you might be concerned with. Is there anything more different than the men and the women experience, especially in times in which we feel victimized by them or we feel hurt by them? Is there any more different experience? And so with this different experience, is it any wonder why it's difficult to name without blaming when we look at one another, men and female? As we do have different experiences, in which the way the world looks at us socially, the way we look at ourselves, what we are expected to do, what our goals are in life, the ways that we get our needs met, the way that we are able to survive, not just socially but physically as well. What we must do to get our needs met, as we all have needs. Isn't it so difficult for us to name issues that we see in the other sex without blaming it, without adding an emotional aspect, because we see ourselves so differently? But are we so different in the end, men and women? Do not we have the same dignity, the same ability to have a good or bad relationship with ourselves? As in the ability to observe ourselves, to see what we want, to see what we give into, to see what we're weak to see what we've improved on. Relationship with ourselves, do we not all have this same dignity? The ability to have a relationship with ourselves, whether that be a good one or a bad one. As we progress through life, do we not all have this? It might be difficult to name issues in which we see with the opposite sex, especially when they hurt us, without blaming. It's difficult to name these issues that we have in the opposite sex without blaming them, without adding the emotional aspect, as it's so difficult, almost impossible to understand them. So how could we name them without blaming them? We're in such different ways of our lives. How could we ever understand them completely? So is it ever possible to just name their issues without blaming them, as we can't ever understand them completely? Or can't we understand them completely? Can't we have a strong relationship with ourselves to begin to understand ourselves more deeply? And can't we relate to them with that aspect? Can we also name the times in our lives in which we had a further connection from remembering that the tip of the tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth? And can we remember how we acted in which we had a further relationship with these facts about ourselves, with the awareness of our own ability to overcome? Can we name those situations in our lives without blaming ourselves? Are we not such a different person in our lives when we are struggling to meet our 5-minute needs of needing to breathe every 5 minutes, of needing to survive every 5 minutes, but that timer is reset with a breath that we take? Are we a much different person? And can we remember those times? Can we name those times in which we can identify that we were a very different person when we are further from the relationship of our design, of this candle in front of our lips? The muscles that get activated when we place the candle in front of our lips that we're trying to not put out. Are we a very different person when we have those muscles highly activated or highly familiar from the version of us who does not have those into our awareness? The you with a strong relationship of your awareness of these muscles that are there to help you overcome from the inside out. Are you a very different person when those muscles are highly familiar to you versus when they are not? And so if you're a much very different person when your relationship with this design is strong, or if it's not, then how can we blame anybody, as they are a constantly different person as their relationship with this design improves? And are we all always just trying to improve our relationship with this design to feel so good from the inside out, to overcome anything from the inside out? Laziness, gluttony, oversexing, substance abuse, things that we lean on because we have a weak relationship with our design in order to feel better from the inside out, in order to overcome all suffering from the inside out. Aren't we a very different person when we have a strong relationship with being able to overcome those versus when we do not? So can you blame anybody when they are not in strong relationship with this? Aren't we a very different person when they're like that? Aren't they a very different person when they're like that? So can we blame anybody when they are not in strong relationship with this design to feel good, to overcome? Can we blame anybody, men and female? Can we blame anybody? As we are always just trying to feel better in this body of ours, as we are always just trying to be prepared to overcome any suffering from the inside out. Can we blame anybody, or should we just name? Should we just name why it's difficult to overcome right now? Is it the fact that we are forgetting that the tip of the tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth? Is it the fact that we are forgetting that there is a candle in front of everyone's lips in which they are trying to not put out? Are you a bad person for not remembering that? Or is it just part of our human condition? And as we are problem solvers, is it easier to do so with hatred or without hatred? Thank you guys for joining for this episode of Palgawan, for this True Love Tuesday. It is October 26th, 2021. Tuesday. It is a True Love Tuesday, 6:25 a.m. Thank you for coming through. We always do appreciate you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for holding this controller properly with us today as we spoke about naming, not blaming. The two sexes seem to be so different. How do we name without blaming? Well, don't we all have a relationship with ourselves? What part did we forget that caused us to breathe so? That caused us to act so? What parts of ourselves did we forget that caused us to act out? As we name it and not blame it and watch the body do its thing, you amazing window to this godlike experience that you are. Feeling so good from the inside out, better than your morning would feel without. Stretching our self-awareness like a muscle every weekday morning, world peace through individual inner peace. Thank you for joining us. My name is Herbie. Good morning, everyone. And this is Pal Go On. We'll see you tomorrow for a Warfare Wednesday. But only if you remember that the back 1/3 of your tongue is vertical and that there's a candle in front of every lips that they're trying to not put out. Not thinking about exhaling or inhaling. And that the tip of your tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. See you tomorrow for a Warfare Wednesday. Thank you.